Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the More Money Show comes in. If you're ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I am normally your host, Cassie Parks, and today I am turning the reins over to Kate. Welcome, Kate.
Ooh, thank you. I'm super excited to do this.
Me too. I'm excited to, because I just love sharing. And so we are, of course, in our Future Self series about going to the Paradise Valley Castle in Arizona, which you can look at paradisevalleycastle.com. And so we're talking all about how that adventure unfolded. Of course, it was a Future Self event. So we're going to be talking about Future Self, all that. And I'm just going to turn it over to Kate.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And it was called Paradise for a reason because it felt like we were in paradise.
Right?
Yeah. And I'm super excited to get your point of view on everything. So let's just jump right in. So to give the listeners just kind of an overview of what our adventure was at the castle while we were in the castle, can you give us your perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's normally I do this event as a fly in, fly out, and it is a money celebration photo shoot for Money Manifested, right? So wherever somebody's at, once they've crossed the $10,000 mark, we celebrate every time they come to a Future Self cocktails, which is also the combination. And so we do celebrate Money Manifested, right? Which Kate did her first one after she crossed 10K about a year ago.
Yes.
So fun. And actually, I know we're going to talk about how things came together, so I'll save part of that story. And then Future Self cocktails, where you show up as your future self. And to a lot of people, it might sound like, oh, well, just cocktails. Like, shouldn't you do it for a couple of days? And the truth is that cocktails is more than enough, because it's not just cocktails. It's the whole thing getting there. You have to continuously be stepping into your future self from the time you say yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And go ahead.
This like brings up so many questions. I'm just like, oh, I just want to do this. So this is your future self, because you have mentioned many times on your podcast with Ginny, though, on how this kind of came into play. And I want to dive a little deeper into that, because I think it's so amazing how we can hear the work that you do and how it works in your life. Because usually when you're interviewing us, it's all about us and it's not about you. So I want this to be about you. So why do you do these celebrations with us?
I do them because for so many reasons. I love that. Like, I love them. So I love giving the space to be your future self. And I love the Money Manifested photo shoot. The Money Manifested photo shoot is interesting because it was just an inspiration one day, because I was like, ooh, we should celebrate with $10,000. And I'd actually done photo shoots in my own journey, right when I changed over. No, actually, when I first did Money, 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 about midway through, I'm trying to think, was that year or that? It might have been the next year. I don't know. I did a $10,000 photo shoot.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it was super powerful. And I went to the bank and I got out the $10,000, and which was so interesting now when I look back and I watch sort of my reactions and like what I did. I went to the bank, I got it. I went to the photo shoot. I started to freak out a little bit a couple days before, and asked my friend, like, will you go with me? Like, and she was like, I'm busy. Like, I'm out. I think she was out of town.
Oh.
It was middle of the day on like a Wednesday, so I went and got the money, and then I went and I took the money right back. Right. And now I'm like, that was silly. Like, I used to the 10,000. It's not currently in my house because I took it out when I moved out of the Four Seasons. But I used to then, like, as it evolved, I did another one for myself, I think. And I went and got the 10,000, or maybe it was for Maggie's. I went and got the 10,000 out, and that 10,000 actually stayed in my house, and it was just there, and it was easy. And so part of the photo shoot is like that comfortability. It's playing with money is one of the reasons. It's to celebrate, because I think we have, as a society, we don't talk about money, right? And
Mhm.
so one of the best ways to break that barrier is to be like, look how much money I manifested, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. And I think one of your biggest things too, which I love when we're a part of your circle, is we celebrate everything right down to a penny. When we find a penny, we celebrate. When, we don't celebrate it any different than if it's a dollar bill or $100 bills. It's the same energy and excitement around that. And the fact that you bring us all together to do it in the same room is so powerful. And and you grow a lot from that too.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
grow, I think, what I realized, because everything starts with inspiration. This is what I love about when you follow inspiration versus like, oh, I'm going to do this because of XYZ, is that,
Uh-huh.
one of the first times I did $100,000 photo shoot to celebrate Jean and Michelle's crossing their $100,000 mark, is that I watched them have to own that money in a different level, because when you're out in public and you're holding, like, it was prop money by this time, like I have my clients manifest so much money that I stopped doing real money.
Yes. 1.5 million this last
Right?
time, right?
Yeah, they're at over 1.5 million, and so we got to move on. We got to go with prop money, but like, even if they're holding $100,000 of prop money and people are walking by, like, you start to own it on a different level, and you own it because even though it's prop money, it's physical representation. Like, it's not play money, because in our
No,
world, it represents what you did manifest, right?
exactly.
And it manifests how you made your car payment, or how you paid for your office rent, or
Yeah.
bought something for your kids. But when you physically hold that money, you're like, this is $80,000 I've manifested. This is $100,000 I've manifested. It just becomes even more real in your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And it brings a whole other level to that excitement, like you said. And I think, maybe this is a good time to talk about the airport experience and
Yeah.
getting there, because we just brought up that 1.5 million in prop money. So you had to bring that with you to the airport to get to see us in Arizona. So talk a little bit about that. I
Yeah.
love this story.
So I ordered the money, and it was funny because even, the journey is always fun, right? We talk about owning the money. So one day I'm like, there's a couple different prop monies I've ordered from, not really realizing in the past, and one is a little bluer, one is a little greener. And so one day I had out on the ottoman all the prop money that I had, because I'm like analyzing, what do I like better and how much do I have of what? And my friend's friend came over, and she's like, huh, that's interesting, right? Like, she walks in the house to do her hair, and there's just these piles of money, like,
That's
sitting there.
awesome.
I'm like, yeah. It's like, this is what I do. Like, I help people manifest money, and I'm just getting ready for a photo shoot.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, so that was first part. Like, and it's, again, owning that, right? When you put it physically, it even makes me still, yep, like, this is what I do, and this is what I do for my clients, and this is part of my everyday life, is managing prop money.
Awesome. I love that.
Right? Yeah. And so I ordered it in what should have been plenty of time, because I'm like, okay, for the first time in Arizona, I celebrated that I've helped people manifest over $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm still working on, like, going back through files, but I think the numbers is probably over 2 million at this point.
That's so cool.
I know, right? But
Yeah.
I wanted to celebrate that. And so I had
Oh,
to order all of that money. Like, I had, I don't know, 200,000 on hand, but I had to order 1.5 to do my celebration. Well, for all of you, and to do my celebration,
yeah.
right? And so it didn't come, and I'm looking at the thing, and I'm like, it says it's not going to be delivered till after I leave. And I'm like, no. So, like, I call, and anyway, my friend and I end up just taking me to the airport. She takes me to pick it up at the FedEx Center the morning of, before she takes me to the airport. So then I have this box of money that I thought would fit. I thought I had a suitcase that the box would fit in. It doesn't fit. So we're at the airport, like, tearing apart the box and shoving all this.
I would have loved a camera on that.
I know. I wish that we would. And I was so focused. She's like, you should see the looks we're getting, because we're just, like, taking it apart and putting it in the suitcase.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And then, I get on, I put it in, and I told the guy, I said, there's $1.5 million dollars of prop money in here. Like, do you need to flag it or anything? He's like, no, they'll be fine. He goes, they might open it. I'm like, okay. And he goes, plus I want to see you explain it. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. So I check the bag and I get to security and I forgot I had a box with the original like 200,000 in it. So they stopped me and they're all looking at it. And the supervisor has to, because I learned a lot. You learn more about having more money, right? If you carry that amount of money through the airport, that you have to claim it. And so security has to make sure that you follow like procedures, right? And so we're going over it. And by the time I have every TSA agent over, like looking at the money, they did not take pictures. They're like, we can't. And it was so funny. But it just opens up that conversation. Like one agent, I'm like, this is what I do. And so I had to explain it to people completely outside of my realm, because even though it clearly says like prop money on it, like the security director is still like, so what do you do? I'm like, this is my book. I help people manifest money. We're doing a celebration photo shoot. He's like, okay. Like, it's like, let's call over another supervisor. And like, we still have to do it.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So that creates you growing too, because in the future, you might have to have more people together that are not more people together, but you're traveling through the airport with a lot more money, real money, not prop money. And you'll have to explain that, right? So that just gives you that exercise and stepping into that future self of that's just so funny. There's so many angles that I can go at with this.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So continue the story.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I get to Arizona and I go get my bag and only the bag that doesn't have the money is there. And I'm like, okay. So I walk into the Southwest counter and I'm like, okay, who wants to help me? And, cause they were both sitting there with nothing to do. And it was so fun because I said, this bag is lost. I'm guessing it's lost because it has $1.5 million of prop money in it. And she's like, what? Yep, that's what it's full of. And he's like, okay. And so, and she calls her friend over and we talk about my book and I give them both a book. And when I went to get it later, they're like, do you have time? Would you open the suitcase for us so we can see it? Like, see what it's like? And I'm like, sure. I open it and she's like, can I just borrow some? Because I want to go show somebody who's on the phone. I'm like, sure. So she walks up to her friend with a stack of 10,000 and, gets that look from her friend and they're taking pictures of it. And it's just, when you are your future self, you open up so much space for other people to see what's possible and to say like, yeah, I want some of that.
Yeah. And I think that, one of the things that you guys talk about a lot too, it's sometimes it's not about us, it's about other people and being on that person's journey, right? So for you to be there, why that happened, instead of you saying, well, why does this happen right now? And why is this, an issue right now? When it really probably was to help these women that were having fun with the money on their journey, and looking at it from that perspective takes out all of the anxiety of it not being there on time and, how that all unfolded. Because it's not always about us in the journey. It's about other people that we come in contact with too. So, I think that was probably a critical part for them was experiencing that fun with that money,
right?
Yeah. But it also put good energy around the money that money that we were getting pictures taken with, which is awesome too, because I like to look at money as energy instead of just money. Mm-hmm. And then looking at it from that perspective, it just added a whole bunch of other energy into what we were doing that weekend, which was really cool. Yeah. Really, really cool. I don't know if I'm saying that point is coming across good enough, but it's just awesome how that happened.
People touch it and it adds to that energy because it holds on to it. Right. And so now it's like, it's even more fun. It's even it's even better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so one of the things that I want to talk about, and I love that story, how that all played out. One of the things that I wanted to talk about with you is, so this celebration, I've been to 2 celebrations with you. So I did, like you said, I did the 10,000, the 10K, and then this was my 100,000 celebration. And so I know what the difference is. Can you tell us what the difference is between the two of them? Because you do these obviously to help us step into our future self, like you said, and to acknowledge what we've done and what we've created. So how is this one different than the ones you've done in the past?
Ooh. So we got to stay. We had this beautiful place to stay, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Castle.
castle, like literally it's a castle.
Yes.
And inside looks just like a castle too.
Yes.
So we had this beautiful place so we got to stay, and we got to have, what I'll call the after party, right? Like where we're all sitting around the table, and I think like every part is important. And that part where you sit, because by that time you've forgotten that you're supposed to be your future self, and you just are your future self. And so those conversations really flow in a different way, because you've been being your future self all day, right?
Yeah.
Which happens in the fly in, fly out in a different way, but like we all just got to be together, and I got to experience that, right? And for me, that wasn't always something I thought would be fun, right? I'd grown way before this. I didn't take any of this, or I didn't have to do any of this work now, but there was always things in the past, like, will people get along? Is this all this stuff, right? And again, I had way outgrown that, so I didn't even have to deal with that, but that was super fun. You just got a chance to be with each other. You got a chance to wander around the castle and find yourself. I mean, it's crazy that this castle had like one random bike pillow, and everyone who is biking as a part of their current or their future selves, like picked up that pillow. And it had the hammock for scripting, right? And it had one beam for all of those of you who have beams in your script, like
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it had ping pong table. And so the biggest difference is that you guys got to stay for a little bit longer, and we just all got to be more of a community.
Yeah. And I mean, both experiences were amazing for me, but I think that's right. I loved that, being able to, and we were all at different levels too.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we all were at the 100,000. It was, some of us were 10K. Some of us were not even there yet. We had someone that was brand new, right? I mean, it was awesome just how it all just kind of came together.
Yeah.
Because and you bring up a good point, this is us being our future self. And you asked us this in our interviews after our stay there as well. So where did you find your future self in the stay at the castle?
I love that question. For sure in the kitchen, like in the open, and I talk about the after party, but like you all sitting around and I was sitting down at the table, and there's really only two pictures, no, I took a couple of you. But there's only a couple pictures I picked up my phone for. And one was to capture that moment at the table where it's all of us. And it was, our amazing photographer, Elizabeth, too, right?
Yeah,
And
that was
just,
awesome.
yeah, sitting there and being, and after this amazing day, and just listening to bits of the conversation. So that's really, because that's who I am. And I'm always facilitating that. That's always part, like it just gets bigger. The people at that table just grow in who they are.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was one place. Another place I found her in a lot in experiences, was, just in letting go, like in a lot of, I'm like, this is going to work, and like trusting. And then there was the first morning, you were getting up to work out, and I really wanted to work out with you, but I got up and I was on the phone with home, and I was fully there, and I was good. And I was a little bit like, oh man, but I really wanted to work out with Kate, and I missed that because this conversation was really good. And what I realized is like, that is my future self, because when I'm away doing this event, I'm going to call and check in, because that's the quiet hours, right? That's when I can balance both being present and connecting and getting a little bit of fuel from home, as well as being with all of you all day.
Right.
And really just being fully present there. And so I realized, like, in missing that workout while I wanted to be in it, it was actually being my future self.
Yeah. I love that, because I kind of say that a lot too with my clients. And this is a perfect example. And maybe this will help you with that too. And because we all are growing in that and trying to figure that out, right? Like when you say no to something, you're really saying yes to yourself. And what is that yes? And your yes was, saying yes to being with, checking in at home and being there. And that is just so powerful when we look at it from that way. And I just
Yeah.
think that's awesome that you were able to do that too. Oh, just all kinds of good stuff coming out of this.
Yeah. And
I
and
love
just
that.
every time, watching you guys transform in the camera is just,
Oh,
and celebrating, of course, like 1.5 million, and really like owning that for me. Like I help people, but I've never, I don't know why. I just never thought to put a number. I never thought to count my own number for you guys. Right.
yeah.
And so just owning that and doing that photo shoot and having fun with all of you guys was awesome. Cause that's what my future self does, is like, I'm a leader, but I'm also just like one of you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you just said too, which was just exciting. So when you said that you never thought to do your numbers of with what we've all manifested, how did that feel when you came up with that? You still haven't dug fully yet
Yeah.
for the past. So, but when you heard or got the number 1.5, how did that feel?
It was amazing because it
Yeah.
was, I put, like, just to make it easy, I'd put something in the Enchanted Circle, and only a few people responded like right away, but it went past $1 million so fast. Like I was like, oh, like I didn't even, because my goal was to be over 1 million, if I didn't have time to go count everything, because it's going to take a little while to go through some emails
Yeah.
and, because it's everywhere. And so just having it cross that $1 million mark so easily and so fast was like, oh, this is awesome. And then knowing I could add in all the other stuff, and I'm like, oh, we're definitely over 1.5.
That's so cool. I love that. Oh, definitely.
Definitely,
No
right?
big deal.
Yeah. And it was big for me. We'll talk
Well,
about, I know
yeah.
we're going to tell a story, but one of the things that plays into this whole story is a script that I was doing. And so I had recently written, like, I am the person who helps people manifest millions.
That's
So
awesome.
having that number so easy also tied into that.
That is so
Which is cool.
cool. And that is where we were going next, because I would love to hear, like, how did this intention or this idea first come to you to get this kind of a celebration together,
Yeah.
like the big number celebration?
Oh, I love talking about the process because it's just so fun for me to be able to teach this. So thank you.
Yeah.
So I first had an idea to rent an amazing, like, when I was a year after leaving my job. I had just hired my mentor. So I just finished my first book, Money Mindset for Champagne Life. And I was at her house, and she's like asking me questions about my business. And I said, like, this is what I want to do. I want to rent a house, and you show up and you be your future self, or you be abundant. I'm not sure if I used the word, I probably did use the word future self. And I said, and you be your future self, and you come, and she goes, you're doing that. But she was like, that's a $10,000 event. She goes, 10,000. And I'm like, I was not there. First of all, because I also couldn't see it. Like, how do you get that? Like, it just didn't make sense in my mind yet. Right.
Mhm.
And she goes, and her idea was to do it and then do coaching after it and before it, which is essentially what's happening now. Right. But
Yeah.
I just let it go. Right. I was like, I can't figure out how to make that work right now. And I didn't try very hard, and I just let it go. And
Awesome.
then I kept building, and I kept becoming my future self and doing these things. And I always did future self cocktails when I had, the original Enchanted Circle looked a little bit different like this, but we had it where you had to show up as your future self and do cocktails and all of that. And so I'd always done that. And so then I had a VIP client in town, and we did her future self cocktails, and I invited a couple local people so that we'd have it. Right. And at that event, she goes, I should fly in. I fly in. My future self flies in and celebrates with her friends. Like, it's important, and I fly in to celebrate. And so we created the next just celebration off of the future self cocktails.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then you two ended up in the same workshop, and she invited you, and then, which is awesome. And I'm like, oh, that's fabulous. Right.
Right.
And, and then, and what that did for me, because the original Future Self cocktails always happened in a 2 to 3 day event, right? It was just part of an event. And so when she flew in and when you flew in for a day, I was like, oh yeah, people will do this. Right.
Yeah.
And I could see also how powerful it was.
Very.
Yeah. So that happened. And then I said, oh, you're here. Because up until that point, the photo shoots had been when people were coming to town, like when I could get them. Right. So like I did her $100,000 photo shoot because she was here. It was part of her weekend. And it had always been, I'd done them before when people came to Manifest 10K Live or if they were local. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, since you're here, let's do this. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I had manifested the perfect photographer. And so we did your shoot. And then it was like, oh, these two things should always go together because you're coming in for cocktails, you should shoot your future self, and then we should shoot your celebration money. And so that's how they've evolved. Was that the original? Oh, that's how it kind of evolved. And then do you want to hear the story now or later about scripting and how this?
Yes, that's how I want it. Yes,
okay.
That as well. You can do that now. Yeah.
So that's current self. And so it was about, at this point of this interview, 2 or 3 months ago, it was I do the workshop for myself and I sat down and I did the workshop and I said, okay, what's happening 5 years from now?
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I want to clarify that. So you go through the workshop when you have your clients going through the workshop. You do it as well.
I actually do it. I can't do it at the same time.
You do it separate. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That's why I wanted to clarify that.
Good question. Yeah.
Okay.
So every once I set my time aside for me and I do the workshop. Then I do the same things that I tell you guys, the same exercises. I usually get somebody to interview me.
Yeah.
And I do it just like you guys. And I do it every 3 to 6 months. And so I sat down to do it. And I said, okay, what 5 years? Like, let's really think into this. Like, what's happening? And I did my own exercises. And what came up for me to script was the money celebration photo shoot and future self cocktails. And what does that look like in 5 years? And I'm like, well, there's 1,000 people in the Enchanted Circle. And so if 10% of them come, that means there's 100 people. Right? I know.
Oh my God.
Like, okay. Which when you think about that, you're like, oh, so what does that look like? And so what I came up with, I'm like, oh, it's a warehouse. And we're setting tables up and like, how are we going to move everybody through? And I'm like, oh, we're going to put them in groups of 10, which is ironic because there were 10 of us at the castle. Right. And we're going to put them in groups of 10 and we're going to, we put them in groups of 10 and there's going to be multiple photographers and there'll be like a makeup station and there'll be a celebration station and there'll be where you get your money and there'll be all these things. And I scripted out this day and I started writing and I started creating these future clients that had manifested X amount and X amount and X amount. Right. And by this time there are people who have manifested millions of dollars. 5 years from now, my clients have definitely manifested millions of dollars.
Awesome.
And so I'm spending time being this person. And as I'm scripting, constantly asking myself, who am I in this situation? Right? Yeah. Who is this person? And I scripted it. And it wasn't a week. It was only a week later that this Arizona thing came together. So I'm scripting it, knowing that this will happen in the future, knowing this is the way it'll be. And someone had contacted Jenny and I and said, do you guys want to come stay at this place? Because there was it's a new vacation rental and they wanted us to try it out and stay there and leave a review. And it didn't work for Jenny. Like the timing it was just too far. It just didn't work. And so I said, I have an event this date. If you want to let me come and bring my people, like we'll do that. We'll all leave reviews. We'll do it. It'll be amazing. And she goes, okay. Well, I was actually at a wedding. I was waiting to hear back from the photographer that she could do it those dates. And I was at a wedding. And so I didn't get the message from the person who does the house. And someone booked the week that we had, which comes out later. I think you couldn't make it that week, right?
Right. Yeah.
And someone else couldn't make it that week. And she was like, I'm sorry. And I said, no, you're getting what you want. You want the house rented? It's rented for like 7 or 8 days. I said, how about the next week? And she goes, okay. And so I changed the date and we all did it because what you pay to be in the Enchanted Circle is a good investment. And it's not generally an investment that comes with this type of experience.
Right.
This is like
Exactly.
$5,000 to $10,000 a year coaching program,
Mm-hmm.
$20,000. And
Mm-hmm.
so it had to come together in a different way. And yeah, I know, right? And she's like, okay. And so I said, here it is. And all of you guys said yes. And you showed up and you got to have this amazing experience. And really, because I started scripting it, it had to come. It started to move that fast in a week, which is how fast like scripting and stepping into your future self can.
Yeah. So from the time you started scripting that to the time when you had that discussion back in with your, was it a business coach that you had that discussion
Yeah.
with? So how long of a period was that?
I think, let's see, 4 years.
That's awesome.
Isn't that awesome? Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing that, because I love pointing that out, because a lot of people think if they're doing all the work and they're scripting and nothing's happening, but they are. It's always like it's the universe setting things up for you in place. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. So like you said, the perfect photographer had to come along, and the perfect place had to come along. But that was a year in between, because I remember the photographer when you first, because I was one of those first photo shoots with her. So it's just really neat to see how it all unfolded, and to be a part of it for this last year, to see how that has unfolded. I just wanted the listeners to be aware that it doesn't happen overnight. This was 4 years, 4 years in the making, which is so awesome.
It is so awesome. And it doesn't mean anything was wrong. It means I got this little vision of what was supposed to happen, and I had to grow into the person. I couldn't have led that event nor had the results that I have now as that person. Like the workshop didn't even exist at that point. I wasn't even talking future self. It was just money and law of attraction, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That is so cool. So I just have 2 more questions for you. So what was the biggest aha for you during this experience? Like the whole experience, putting it together, being there, all of that. What was the biggest aha moment for you?
Biggest aha. I know I even got this question the biggest aha. And by aha, you mean like, oh, that piece is in place, right?
Yeah.
That this is easy. That like that I've become so much of my future self and who this is easy. So I remember the first time I got asked to do an event. It was my hairdresser back then, and this was 7-8 years ago. And I was telling her what I did, and she said, well, I know what it was. I had done a New Year's retreat. I'd made it up for a friend of mine, and we did it on New Year's Day. And I was telling my hairdresser about it, and she said, oh, if I get a bunch of girls, will you do it first? And I said, yeah, because I'd love to try it out with a group, right? And I remember all of the running around and the stress of oh my God, I got to get this perfect. Oh my God, this has to be this. There was a lot of pressure on that event, because I thought it was going to make me, right? Somehow, right? I mean, I had a videographer to tape the whole thing, so I was going to turn it into this evergreen thing. I mean, just so many things. And so I was stressed about what I was going to wear, because it was going to be on video, and, video changes things. And I was getting all the pieces together, all the things that I needed, all of this stuff. And this was so easy. Right? Everything was easy, right? Even the hiccup with having to go get the money was actually super fun and added to the story.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I went and I got the party favors. This is so funny. But this is one of the moments I realized it was easy, was the party favors were so easy. It just happened one day. I found something on Amazon, and then, oh, you could have that delivered to Whole Foods. Cool. Cause I got to go there anyway. And then I knew what I wanted, and I went in a store and I just found it. Whereas that would have been super stressful before, because I like being that person who gives this amazing, this tokens to take home that has the energy, right?
Yes.
Of the event. And yeah, that was like super a lot of work in the past, but this was so easy because
That was awesome.
yeah.
It's so awesome. Easy. I love that.
Yeah.
So that is like one of the best ahas that you can walk away with. That
Totally.
it's easy.
It's easy. And
I
it's
love
who
that.
I am. Yeah. And
Yes.
I think that's the other one is like, oh, you have become this person. Like it was this realization that like, oh yeah, this is who you are. Like you just walk in and you put on an event and everybody's happy and everything works out and it's amazing and brilliant. And, you know, a month later, there's going to be all these amazing photographs.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I know.
I can't wait. So I do have one more question for you.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I like to do when we do our workshops and when I go to these, because I've been to 2 events, but what I always ask myself when I leave is what did you grow? Where did you grow? What did you take from that? Like, what was your biggest growth in that experience? And I love asking that because sometimes I think you and I talked about this before where in the beginning, there were huge leaps and bounds of growth. But where you are obviously is not where I am, but I'm noticing now that things are more subtle and I have to dig a little bit deeper to find those, but there is growth there. It's just a deeper level of growth.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's where you're at too, but that's
Yeah.
just me assuming. So for you, like, how did you grow from this experience? Where was your biggest growth?
Ooh, so the easy one and realizing like those are 2 of the really big growths. Another place I found my future self was after we're done with the photo shoots and we've jumped in the pool, I stayed in the pool, right?
Yes.
Everybody else got out. I stayed. And for me, that was a growth because like I don't have to I don't have to entertain anyone. I just create the experience, right? And I get to refuel me um afterwards. And whether this event takes place at a house like it does currently, or it takes place in a warehouse, like I would leave that event and I would go fuel myself probably in some sort of water, whether that's a hot tub or a bath or a pool, right? And so the fact that I allowed myself and I really caught the thought like, oh, I should get in the house. Like, no, I'm going to stay out here. Elizabeth and I had great conversation and then she went in and I just had my alone time. And the fact that I allow that is super big growth and
That's
trust
awesome.
that, right? It's trust in who I am and what I've created.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you
Ooh,
for sharing that with
you're
us.
welcome.
I could probably sit here and talk to you for hours about that.
I
I
know. I
just
could
think it's
talk about it for
amazing. And I love that you provide this kind of experience for all of us and that I get to be a part of that. And that's, you can't say thank you enough for that. And it's priceless. You can't put a price on that. And the way that we grow and the amount of growth that we have in these experiences is priceless. And I just love what you do. I appreciate what you do. And I am just so thankful that I'm a part of that. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for
You're
being here.
awesome.
And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, that would be the other aha is like, I created all of you. Like I attracted all of you. And
That's so funny. I was just going to say, thank you for manifesting me.
you're welcome. Like, yes.
Yes.
Like that's all I heard, right? Like when the makeup artist, they're like, man, you have such cool people. I'm like, I know. And I'd hear it from newer people, like, everyone here is amazing. I'm like, I know. And Elizabeth always tells me, like, your clients are rock. I know they're
She's
awesome,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
And she's awesome too.
yeah, she is awesome, right? Of course she's awesome because
Of
we
course.
attracted her, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
you definitely did. I think everybody that you have brought around you and have attracted to you is amazing. And so
Yeah.
that means I'm amazing.
You are amazing.
I'm amazing. That's my biggest aha right there.
I love it. Yay.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing this with us. And I really appreciate you being willing to share that. And I think that's what makes you such a great, and I think of you as an equal too, but it's really being a leader because that's what leaders do is they help the people that they work with become them and more. You just
Yeah.
don't hold us back and you're just like, oh, I want to see you succeed more than me. And I think that's why everything that you do is so successful. And you you care about the outcomes of us too, not just yourself. So I think that's just awesome. And that's so precious. Not everybody has that. So I just appreciate everything that you do. I love it.
Oh, thank you. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
interviewing me.
Yeah, it was so fun. Thank you for allowing me to.
You're welcome. And thank you all for listening. Make sure to check out the whole Future Self Experience series, because you're going to hear from all of these wonderful ladies and you're going to get nuggets of how to become your future self.
Thank you for joining us on The More Money Show. To learn how to identify your current money story, go to identifyyourmoneystory.com.